Good morning and welcome to the Haven Tree Family and Parent Podcast, where we get a chance to get away from the kids and talk about something that's important to us and hopefully yourself before they wake up.
Today's special guest is Mystique. Mystique is a very odd and wonderful cat. She tends to think that she is a stuffed animal and just lets the kids lug her around and carry her and treat her like a baby and put, diapers on her and all sorts of tomfoolery. She is very sweet and we're very thankful for her. Mystique is joining us today as we finish our love languages topics and talk about words of affirmation.
All right, so like you said, we're going to talk about love language of affirmation today and just how it applies to you and your family members. I know for me, affirmation is one of the biggest things that I need or
love, desire, wish for all the time.
Everything I do is basically to get affirmation. So when I don't get it, I take it very hard. Not that it, turns me evil or something, but I appreciate any affirmation that I can get for doing just different tasks or, like I said before in one of the earlier casts, I like to do active service, and the end result is to achieve getting some affirmation from doing those acts of service or trying to fill that need where I see it.
Yeah. I think, if you think about words of affirmation, it's really, I'm sure that most of us have something that we could think of, whether it be like a coach or a parent or a family member, that said something that was really meaningful and encouraging, that you still remember today. I recall, I'm trying to think, I don't even remember where I was. I think maybe I went to prom with, a friend from my old school. And so I saw some of my, teachers that I had in middle school, and, they asked, what I was planning to do when I graduated, and, she was just trying to catch up. And I told her, I'm going to be a nurse. I'm going to go to, this school and study nursing and blah, 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 blah. And, it was fun to talk to her because she was my science teacher. And I remember her saying oh, that's so cool. She was like, you'll be really good at that. I could never be a nurse because I don't have the confidence, but you'll be so good at that because you have the confidence to do really well. And I can remember thinking that was such a, it was really surprising to me because I didn't at that time, as a senior in high school, I didn't feel like I had a lot of confidence at all. And I still don't sometimes, but when that was something that I thought of often, there'd be times where as a nursing student, you go into a patient's room and they're cranky with you and you just feel like you don't know anything and you don't want to be upset with you and you feel bad that they're not feeling well. And it's just this creates anxiety as a student, where I would think about that and be Mrs. Miller saw confidence in me when I didn't see confidence in myself. I can do this,
Mm-hmm.
and those things, those words of encouragement or affirmation, they don't have to be, things that you've taken a long time to think about. They just are things that are meaningful to you,
Yeah. As someone that likes affirmation, it's something that I would agree that there's moments where you can pull those out of that memory of oh, somebody was really encouraging about me doing this or positive feedback from this area. But as I seek as much affirmation as I can get, it also sort of blends together and you sort of not to get a chip on your shoulder from it, because that's not your goal, is to feel puffed up by it. You just want to know that you're doing the right job and the right work and whatever. You want that positivity. And that just motivates you to keep doing those things. And I think that's where that encouragement is good. But I would also say I can probably count on the number, in my hands or whatever, the number of times I've been into offices or whatever for just negative things. And those are almost more impactful or devastating just as well. And it's those stand out in my mind more sometimes than
Yeah.
like nice words of affirmation. Not that I want to linger on those, but there is that, like, because I seek affirmation, when I don't get it and I get the negative side, like, it's definitely a bigger lock in my memory.
Well, and I think that there's like research that says like one criticism takes like 10 positives to negate.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that that's important. I think sometimes as parents, we may worry about like making our kids too proud or like, but I think, you know, it's important to realize like that ego, that sense of self is really kind of fragile, you know, and words are powerful, particularly for a kid who words of affirmation is one of their primary love languages. So I think it's really important that as parents, we're cautious of that. I think, you know, when you're thinking about words of affirmation, praise is a really easy example of that. But I would give the caution that it needs to be used correctly. And this means a couple of things. For one, it means that it shouldn't be with a correction or suggestion. So, you know, you could say like, wow, you're so strong, you know, but it shouldn't be like, wow, you're so strong. Like, why don't you play football? Like, because there's a difference there. Like one is like, just like a recognition of an attribute or a strength. The other is like telling you to do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
why aren't you doing this beyond what you were doing?
Right.
Yeah, it makes you question it a little bit more than just like appreciate what you've done. So
I think another caution of praise is it shouldn't be used flippantly or too much. So like you're not gonna say like, so I'm not good at giving words of affirmation. It's something that I've really had to practice since our marriage, and then, you know, with kids also. But it shouldn't be used flippantly. So it shouldn't be like, oh, great job, you know, getting out of bed. Like,
right. And I don't think any of our kids, at least not that I focused on, have the need for affirmation. Like, I think they appreciate it. Like, Adri might like affirmation, but I don't think that it stands out.
I don't see that as something that any of them. And I try to like say like, because I think that even if it's not something that makes them feel loved, it does reinforce that behavior.
Yeah, maybe
so,
Jay,
like,
because she likes doing the acts of service and then getting the affirmation, but I can't say that she understands the affirmation aspect of doing the service.
Yeah. So you know, so I think I use words of affirmation with the kids to like reinforce positive behavior. Mm-hmm. I don't know that necessarily makes them feel loved, but I do think that it encourages them to want to do that behavior again. Right. Because even if words of affirmation doesn't make you feel loved, it still is enjoyable to hear, you know. And then I think too, you know, praise can be perceived as lying if you're giving it sort of flippantly or without thought. Right. So like if you say like, oh wow, great job on this picture that like your kid like, you know, scribbled a couple lines on, when you know that they're capable of doing a lot more than that, then again, you're kind of teaching them that, like...
Obviously, for Kenzie right now, I say great job for everything. So
yeah.
Like, hey, great job.
Yeah.
But she's like, is that okay? I'm like, yes.
The praise that you're giving them, it's important that it's genuine if you're going to give it to them. Right. And I think I think that it can be genuine even if it's about something silly, you know, like... And I think my encouragement would be, if it's not something that you're good at, just keep trying, you know, keep practicing... and sort of just like put a Post-it note in your brain for a week to look for opportunities to do that. And I laugh because like, you know, it is something that I know is really important to you, like the most important, you know? And I tend to be very practical and very much a problem solver. And so I often am known to be like, okay, that was nice, but let's look at how we can do it better next time. And that's immediately like, to you, that's like a criticism and a slap in the face. And it's not that's not how it's meant at all. You know, it's meant as like, that was good, but I want to be the strongest partnership ever. So how do we make it better together? You know? Right. And so to me, it's like an expression of love almost, that I want to be better with you, you know? And that's not how you perceive it at all. So this is one that was really hard for me to have to learn how to give And so it's something that I had to just kind of like keep, just making like little mental notes, like,
right, because it's not like it's an easy thing for me to request or to.
No, you can't say like,
to
can you
push
give me
for.
encouragement?
Right. It's
Because
like
then it's
like, how do I learn to give quality time better or do a better quality of doing that? You know, so.
But then now, like when I remember one time, like we had some people from church over to help us with stuff after Kenzie was diagnosed, and they just wanted to come over and like help with some house projects because they knew like we'd been at the hospital and didn't have the time to do them. And so they were like fixing a closet door, or building a closet or something like that. And so they asked me to come down and give my opinion. There was like a couple different people working on different projects. And so they wanted me to come down and get my opinion. And they were like, I don't think we can do this way. Like, we're going to have to do this, you know, whatever. What do you think of this? Whatever. And, you know, and I was like overwhelmed anyway with like just being so thankful that like they were there and they were helping and like.
Well, you were 3 months pregnant and we had just been diagnosed. And so a lot of things are going on for us.
So I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is so great. However you think it's going to be best. Like, you know, this is already beyond like what I was expecting. So, you know, however you guys want to do this, like I'm happy with. And one of the husbands was like, I'm going to come over and do projects at your house all the time because you know, this is nice. Like, and, you know, and it was kind of like, and it was in jest, and it's somebody that's a good friend of ours. So it wasn't like an inappropriate, you know, sort of comment.
Right.
But it did kind of like make me pause and think like, it's something that needs to be practiced, you know, like, and I'm not always like that with you, you know, like there are times when I'm like, well, I think it needs to be a little higher, a little to the left, or like, and that's natural and that's okay.
You know,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Like how to get it perfect. So that way I'm like, okay, when she comes in, she's going to want it to be this way. So now I know project wise where things need to be a little bit closer to.
And so part of it was just because it wasn't my husband. So I wasn't going to say like,
can you move it
this
left?
is terrible. You know,
can you move it to
like,
the left by 2 inches?
You know, I was feeling just like generally thankful for, you know, the fact that they took time out of their day to come and help.
Right.
You know, and so that's part of like where that came from too.
Yeah.
You know, but like, I think it does go to show like that those words of like, I trust you, like, I think you're doing a great job, like are meaningful if you're a kid or an adult. And so they're important, especially if you're not good at it, to practice those words and get used to saying those words and look for opportunities to use those words, and use them as frequently as you can. Because then on the flip side of that, you're also using your words to correct. You're using your words to teach. You're using your words to instruct. And so I think I would be willing to guess that if you are a parent who is disciplining and correcting and teaching and instructing, you're not going to be able to give too much praise or too much recognition to your kid. Now, that said, if you're a parent that's lackadaisical and not correcting and spoiling and telling your kid how awesome they are all the time, you may raise an egotistical maniac, but that's, you know, kind of different, I think, than like,
you don't want to affirm bad behavior and bad habits or whatever. But
I think for a parent that's trying to be conscientious and trying to raise good kids, it would be my guess that it would be kind of hard to give them too much affirmation. If you're also doing the other good parenting tasks that you're supposed to.
Right.
I think, you know, other than praise, another way to give affirmation is through encouragement. And we've kind of alluded to that. But like, you know, if you really break down words of affirmation, they kind of fall into praise or encouragement. And words of encouragement are things that sort of like communicate your faith in them or your faith in their abilities.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually like just hearing like good job or nice job or you did that really well, or, you know, and you really sink in that like this must be something you're skilled at. Like you're really talented, and, you know, that's what as for somebody that likes affirmation, like I like hearing those things. But
like, I think, you know, encouragement is more kind of like, I guess what I described at the beginning of like, I have I have faith in you because of your skills that you're going to do this and do it well. You know, and encouragement is something I use a lot with school, where like Adri in particular, she's getting frustrated with something and it's like, Adri, you are so smart. I know that you can do this. Tell me where you're struggling and we will work through it together. But I know that you can do it. So where do we need to take a break and fix it, you know? And so encouragement can be really powerful. And I think encouragement is kind of what you often carry with you, as like somebody else had faith in me or somebody else thought I could do this. And so I think encouragement is a really, really, powerful and cool tool if you know how to use it.
Yeah.
And it can be used with guidance, and it kind of decreases the need for correction sometimes. So like, you know, you could say like, I love that you are so kind that you are able to make good decisions when you're playing with your siblings, right? And it sort of is like a reminder ahead of time that I'm recognizing like you have the capability to, or I love that you're such a good problem solver. You know, you have the ability to do this.
Well, I think that's something that most parents forget, is that like it's easy to, you know, go around the house saying like, no, stop that, don't do
this,
that, stop hitting your sister, stop
What are you
doing whatever
doing?
else. And it's hard to go around the house and do the opposite and say like, wow, you're doing a really good job picking up toys, or that was really helpful that you would do that little extra that you just did, and catching those like positive moments, even though you might recognize it and like, oh great, they got that thing. And calling that out and saying that is definitely something I would say like watch for, especially if you know your kid is one of those affirmation seeking type kids that wants to do that extra to get that word of encouragement. And I think that's harder for everybody to call that out. Like it's, you know what, usually, like I was saying earlier, like it's easy to go and like, well, we do a good job as like a society as like making like award ceremonies and banquets.
Right.
And like, here's your MVP and like you did a really great job. Here's your whatever award. But as a family, what are you doing to award that? And right now, like I said before, I think we just keep bringing it up, is our star chart. Like that's what we try to use as like our, oh, you did something extra. Here's a star.
And it's an easy way to like, for me to be reminded of, because we have it hanging on the wall in our like school area. And so it's sort of like I'm walking by it all the time. So then I'm reminded visually to look for ways to recognize and affirm our kids. And it sort of is like that verbal affirmation of like, dude, I love that you did this, right? And then, you know, it's followed up sort of with that action.
Right. There's a star, and that'll get you one more point towards getting, you know, your 40 stars or whatever. So.
And I think, you know, what you're hearing is there's lots of ways to sort of like hit multiple love languages in a single action or in a single thing that you're doing with your kids.
Yeah.
You know, we talked before about like reading, you can use physical touch and quality time just by reading a book with your kids.
And I think your kids will, like I said, I still don't know if I have a positive idea what Adri's love languages are. And I think, you know, they mold over time, and it's probably based on your reactions with them and like what you build or focus on. And then they're going to focus on that same thing. So I think there's definitely flexibility, or it's in the molding as you go forward.
I think on the flip side of that, you know, it certainly is easy to say, and it sort of is something that people say a lot, but words have power, right? And there are so many researched issues that verbal abuse can present in kids. You know, kids, you know, who experience verbal abuse have real challenges with self-esteem. They have major issues with the ability to trust and form relationships with others. It chips away at their academic and social skills. Current research says that kids that experience verbal abuse, that is just as destructive emotionally as physical and sexual abuse. And so I think it's really important when we're talking about the words you say to your kids and how to build them up, that you're also remembering that you have such power to cause damage if you're not careful.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it's something that, you know, I can say that, right? And you can say like, well, I would never verbally abuse my kids.
Right.
But then I think, I mean, unfortunately, I've heard people say like, why are you being so stupid right now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? In our house, we're not allowed to say stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But
right, or call anybody a name, or sort of speak negatively. Like
Right.
we don't like condone that, or you know, do it ourselves, or
Yeah.
you know, we might say it to each other, like these kids are crazy. And
But I think too, even considering saying like, you are bad versus you made a bad choice, right?
right. Your choice was bad. Yeah.
And so I think being really careful and conscientious about the way that you describe your child, the way that you talk to your child is important.
So until the next adventure.
Bye.